I'm not saying that men don't, but I think that, you know, with everything that we do, and the journeys that we take, we do a lot, and we probably don't realize how much we do. I think just doing this and having to have a look at what I was going to say today, I think about what I was going to say today, I realized how much I have done, and what I have done to get to where I am today. So I think you're sharing. Yeah. Okay. So let me start sharing.
Yep.
Because I've only got 10 minutes and I need to keep to the time. So let me know when you can see my screen. What can you see? Can you see the PowerPoint, or can you see?
It's coming up now. I can see it now.
Yep, good.
Yep.
Good. Okay, so my name is Charlotte Dick. So my role is I work within the Ministry of Defence. I work for the Defence Medical Services within Defence Primary Healthcare. So basically, what I do is I work with people. I work with service personnel, making sure that they are receiving the quality of care that they should be. That involves managing or leading facilities. I say facilities. So in the military world, they're called facilities, but in the civilian world, they are called GP surgeries, mental health facilities, occupational health facilities, and also physiotherapy, so rehab facilities or centres. So it will just be making sure that there's no patient safety incidents. If there are, that they're resolved and we are learning from them, and looking at how we can improve the quality of care that patients are receiving. So looking at innovative ways to do that. So that's just basically what I do in my working life. But who am I? So I decided to put a picture up of me and my two sons at Christmas. The little one, as you can see, is very cheeky. And, you know, basically this is who I am. I am, you know, a mother. I am a wife. I didn't put my husband in here because I don't think he'd appreciate me sharing his picture. You know, amongst other things, not just my, you know, role within work, you know, we have, even if you don't have children, you've got a life outside of work. And that also forms you, you know, those lessons that you learn as being a mother, a wife, whatever you are, will help you along your journey. And I think it's important to remember that. So that's just the reason why I put that in there. So looking at my journey. So I can't put everything on a timeline, not within the time frame that I have to talk to you today. But, you know, basically, I've just put in the timeline my time within healthcare and what I feel has formed me to the person that I am today and where I am today. I use the timeline as when I done my recent masters, I had to do a timeline in my leadership module. I didn't really understand why I was asked to do that, but then I realized how important life events are. So I started off my journey in 2011 in healthcare, where I completed my degree in physiotherapy. So I'm a physio by background. There isn't many Black physios, and it was made known to me. It was quite clear that there aren't Black physios within healthcare. I received a lot of racism. I was going to quit, but I didn't, and I continued. So there was barriers all the way through my degree, especially when doing clinical placements. So I had also had my first son during that period. He was diagnosed, I had him to 2008 and 2011, just when I was finishing my degree, he was diagnosed with autism. The reason why I've put that in there is because it is important, as it changed the path that I was going to take. I was, you know, I went for a whole load of emotions, and you will do when if anyone has a child who's got special needs. You know, your life is totally different, but it's about what you learn from that. And it has given me a lot of strength, and it's given me strength that I didn't realize that I had, and has pushed me into achieving more and breaking those barriers. So I also became an advocate in autism, set up a support group. In 2012 to 2016, I secured my first management role within the NHS, and that was purely because the journey that I was taking with my son and what he needed. So I quickly went into an NHS management role and didn't take the normal route within the physio world. I met my first mentor, and my first mentor actually wasn't Black, didn't look like me. She pushed me. I didn't really, I can't say I really got on with her at that time, but now when I look back, she actually helped me quite a lot to get the confidence that I have today. I would never be speaking to you here today. I'd never have done something like this. And that's really helped that her pushing me helped me to get to where I am today. I had the birth of my son, my second son. Also to 2018 to 2021, I completed my master's in patient safety. I was told that I couldn't complete a master's because I was a mother with 2 children and 2 children with special needs. Well, I proved them wrong. And I wish that they would be on this call today and to tell that person that I did it anyway. So I think it's important to listen to yourself. You know what you're capable of, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. And that should make you want to do it even more. So I'm not going to go into every single detail because I won't have time to, but I went on, and my second son was diagnosed in that period too. I also think it's important just to say I met my amazing mentor who helped me to get to where I am today and really pushed me, and that's what you need, is someone who is going to push you, but you also need to put the work in. And where I am today, and also proud to be part of Black Women in Care as a board member. So what have the challenges been for me? Well, you can see this picture of the person walking up the steps, and actually there has been challenges and obstacles along the way. When we look at what is the challenges within healthcare, women are, so this is an article that I found from 2020, and it's from The Independent, which says women significantly are underrepresented in senior positions across the NHS, a report finds. That's nothing new. We know that women are underrepresented in many senior roles. I don't think that is something that should stop us. And actually had a conversation with my brother beforehand, who's telling me that, we need to speak up. We need to be present, and that's the only way we're going to break the barriers and be in those senior positions. So it just says here 75% of the health service and workforce has found that women are substantially underrepresented in senior positions. So it's just 1 in 4 chief financial officers for the NHS Trust are women, and just over a quarter of medical directors. So the lowest proportion of women in the board level positions was an ambulance trust at just 39%. This was from The Independent. So I know when I worked in my last role, I would go to a board meeting and be the only Black person in the room, despite a Black woman in the room. So there was other females, but mostly men. And I was the only Black person there. I never let that intimidate me. It did used to, but I think you've just got to ignore that. And now I am still probably the only Black woman I know within my position, but I don't even notice it anymore. So this is just an article, this is some statistics that I pulled from the Work Race Equality Standards, this run by the NHS. So 6.8% of very senior managers in the NHS Trust are from Black minority ethnic backgrounds. And this is, it was 5.4% in 2016, so it has increased. We've got 10% of all trust board members are from a BME background. And this has gone up because it was 7% in 2017. The relatively likelihood of Black staff or minority ethnic staff entering the disciplinary process is at the lowest level since this data has been collected within the NHS. But we know it's still very high. And the relatively likelihood of a BME staff accessing non-mandatory training is at the lowest level since this data has been collected. So challenges for Black women. So while I was doing my research for this talk today, I found an interesting article from Forbes, which looked at the challenges that Black women especially face within senior leadership roles. So it's like you want to pressure in the workplace to conform to what is expected. So changing how you dress. So, you know, maybe you will think, and I know that I do, you know, which I did actually think about how I dressed, and I wanted not to stand out. So I may not wear something that may be, I don't know, native or something like that. The way you wear your hair. So I can remember going to interviews and making sure that I straightened my hair, and it wouldn't look quote unprofessional. And I can remember when I went for my interview within my senior leadership within the NHS, and I said, I'm going to wear my hair in braids, because if they don't accept me with my hair in braids, then I don't want to work for them. And I got the job on the first, you know, in the interview. And that's when I knew that actually it doesn't matter. You got to be yourself. The way you speak. So if you feel like you can't speak how you would, you know, with your family, with your, you know, your peers, and you talk differently when you're with somebody that looks like you. Looking at your social circles, do you need to, you know, go out and be with the people within your workplace too? Places you probably wouldn't ever go before, just to fit in, and for them to think that you are, you know, one of them. Changing your behavior to appear less Black, and that's what was quoted. And, you know, be yourself, don't be anyone else. This becomes the norm and you conform. But should we be conforming? No, we shouldn't. And I think that's the way we move forward. So opportunities. Sorry, Alinka, I'm probably going over time, sorry. So what can we do to break the bias? So be yourself. If you're going in the room and you know exactly what you're saying, speak up. Don't sit in the back being quiet because you're the only Black person in the room, or you're the only female in the room. Show off your skills. If you don't show your skills off, nobody is going to show them off for you. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Because if you don't, how are you going to learn? How are you going to be able to progress? Do not limit who can inspire you. They do not have to look like you. So all of my mentors haven't looked like me, but I do want mentors to look like me. I know I've had people approach me and wanted me to mentor them. And, you know, I feel proud to be in a position that people are asking me. I can't always do it, but it's nice. And I've always wanted someone to look like me to be in a senior leadership role, but you don't always have to have someone before you get to that position. And when you get there, you can inspire the next generation. So remember, you have to create your own success. So just looking at Michelle Obama and her quotes, you know, she inspires me. She's a powerful woman, and she was, you know, the one who was driving Barack Obama. Just try new things. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone all right, you need to do better, putting a better job for putting ourselves higher on your own to-do list. And success is only meaningful and enjoyable if it feels like it's your own. Sorry, thank you. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much for that. Well done, very well done. Thank you so much for that, Charla. We certainly took a lot from your session. So we learned that we need to be ourselves, be confident enough to show off our skills, and we shouldn't be afraid to ask for help. People are willing to help if we do ask, and do not limit who can inspire us. It doesn't have to be the same colors as us, but also if we do have someone the same color that we can look up to, absolutely. And then remember that you can create your own success. So thank you so much for that wonderful session, Charlotte, and for sharing your story with us as well. So I'll now be introducing us to our next speaker. Our next speaker today is Geraldine. Geraldine is a director at Marie Curie. I'll just be sharing my screen for a moment, just for a few seconds. I hope you can all see my screen. Can you see my screen? Great, fantastic. Okay, so I'll just be sharing my screen. I'll be introducing Geraldine to us. She's the Associate Director at Marie Curie. She has a wealth of experience in design, wealth of experience path in the design and delivery of older persons' mental health integrated care. These roles have included commissioning and designing dementia and intermediate care pathways, improving Black and Asian community access to care and support services, also older people mental health service redesign, mental health nursing, policies implementation, social care, and health workforce development, strategy development, and project management and care audit skills. So she will also be sharing her experience in diversity and leadership. She'll be sharing her experience with us tonight as well, and also what we can do moving forward. So over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, and thank you for having this opportunity and this platform to be able to sort of speak with other women, Black women, about leadership and my own personal journey and experiences as a Black woman working in health and care. So don't have an actual formal presentation, but I've got a couple of slides at the end that I just wanted to highlight and showcase particular people that I found influential. But I suppose what I wanted to do is start at the beginning. So I began my journey in health and care about 38 years ago as a mental health nurse. And the reason I'm going to start there is because the world in health and care looked and felt quite different to now, although it might not feel as if sometimes there's been much progress. If I look back to when I started in the late or mid 80s, I was a student nurse. I went into mental health nursing, and often assumptions were made about me because predominantly there was a disproportionate number of Black women who tended to go through the pupil nurse or SEN, state enrolled nurse training, which was a shorter course. Assumptions were made as soon as they saw me that I must have been a pupil nurse rather than a student nurse, which was a 3-year course. And that was quite a common comment whenever I first went onto a ward. There was that assumption, and this was at a time when you had student and pupil nurse training. The other question that was often asked of me was, where was I from? And again, had to make sure you kind of, I suppose, took some of that on the chin and didn't get overly or overtly upset by that. But these were things that were quite commonly asked or questioned from somebody who may have come and had a Black and brown background. And in mental health, certainly when I started in mental health in the hospital I was in Northampton, there were also a disproportionate number of Black, brown and Irish people working in mental health. And that was because then mental health services and the learning disability services were the less popular parts of health and care. They were less funded and often the Cinderellas of the health service. And for those reasons, you tended to find that perhaps people of colour and certainly Irish nurses were found it easier to get jobs and get on and progress in those sectors as it was then. And in the hospital I worked at, there were a number of middle range nurses who were Black and Asian, but it was very different once I did my sort of stint of training in general hospitals. It was quite a stark difference just how few nurses, Black or brown, and doctors were in hospitals in the acute and general sector. So moving sort of forward, one of the things that became apparent was that, sadly one had to learn to navigate the system, and there were less leadership role models as things progressed. So bizarrely, sort of, you find ourselves in a peculiar situation where I sometimes think there are less senior nurses or nurses that I would have looked up to as a young or aspiring student nurse or young nurse now, because there are seemingly more barriers or glass walls or barriers to Black and brown nurses, I think, in parts of health and care. And it's a curious sort of position, really. And I think that's because mental health and learning disability services, in a good way, are better funded, and they have more kudos than they used to. But actually, that might have, in a perverse way, had an adverse effect on nurses of colour and people working in those sectors who came from more diverse backgrounds. But over the course of, obviously, the number of years I've worked, what I have always tried to do is be very focused in terms of my standards and having integrity in anything that I did. So, wherever I was in situations where I needed to, or was asked to sort of take the lead, I obviously took those opportunities and would grasp them. But I was also very clear on not compromising my own standards and integrity. And I think that's important that you keep that throughout, because you've got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror as a person and as well as a leader, and not necessarily copy or mimic others around you, who may be, when things go wrong, be the first to point or push you forward, dare I say it, when things don't always work so well. And one of the, I suppose, protective behaviours I always would sort of make sure that I installed in myself, and wherever possible others, was to make sure that you kept hold of your standards and your principles and your integrity, whatever role you were in. And as you gradually sort of manage to progress, you need to make sure that you continue to do that throughout your career. That sometimes might mean that others may, let's say, go up the ladder a lot higher and faster than you at the time. And I've certainly seen a lot of that. But I also sort of have to kind of, if you like, check myself and think, well, at the end of the day, you still got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and be able to say to yourself, to your colleagues, to patients and people that you work with, that you did the best, and it was through the best, your best sort of principles and values that you were trying to help and support them. So I suppose one of the things I'd kind of try and stress in terms of when you're becoming a leader and aspiring to leadership roles, particularly as a black woman, is to, as Charlotte's already alluded to, it is important to, I think, value yourself and know your worth. It's very easy for others to, if you like, take pot shots and maybe devalue what you do, take credit for what you've done. So again, the lesson I learned fairly early on was to make sure that you do have to champion your own successes, not in an arrogant way, but to make sure that you're able to be accountable, but also take the credit where credit's due. Make sure you promote yourself appropriately, use different fora to do that. Obviously, we've got a range of different channels that we can do that now. And that's important. Social media has been a real enabler to make sure that people who have done the heavy lifting and in the past were hidden figures are getting the credit for that sort of work now. So I suppose moving on and fast forwarding to 2020, I think it's important to acknowledge that there clearly has been progress. However, there's still an awful lot to do. There aren't enough Black women role models in leadership roles, particularly in health and care, and that does really come into sharp focus when you're on these Zoom calls. And over the last 2 years or so, there's been an awful lot of them. I've been part of a leadership team and been invited to calls, and often again been the sole only face or one of the few that are there. I would probably say on a positive sign, it's starting to change, and we're starting to see a little bit more of that. But equally, it's important to have allies and have, if you like, co-workers that can support you of any ethnicity, and they need to be authentic. So just having the sort of prerequisite brown faces isn't enough anymore. People have got to have the right values. You've got to feel you can work with them and be supported by them. And that may mean that you need to look at, when you're aspiring to progress, when you're wanting to sort of look at organisations where you can grow and thrive, you need to perhaps be more selective, look beyond the statements on the websites and whatever kind of, I suppose, diversity washing they might be doing, for want of a better word, because we know in the last sort of year or two there's been an awful lot of that. But you know, the substance, you need to look behind the substance of what these organisations are saying. What actual action have they taken? What strategies have they put in place to look at progressing everyone in the workplace, so nobody's left behind, and that they're able to be transparent about what they're doing, they're sharing what they're doing, they're not just talking the talk. One obvious marker is looking at the board, but that's not the only one, because sadly, if you look at lots of boards, you will still see that they haven't changed that much in terms of their makeup. But equally, the organisations that are owning that and being much more, I suppose, conscious that they need to change, and are saying, yes, this is what we're doing. This is where we need to be, but also putting some money where their mouth is. They're also the organisations you need to be kind of more cognizant of in terms of your progression and what you can offer. But you also see, as I say, going back to knowing your worth, see what they can do for you. It's not a one-way street. You know, you need to value yourself as a valuable asset that any organisation will be proud of. With that in mind, I just wanted to perhaps share a link to an article that somebody called Professor Laura Serrant, who you may have heard of, is a nurse and has been a leading light in terms of diversity in health and care, but equally in leadership. And she's one of those people that I've sort of followed and taken a lot of time to listen to actually see how she looks at leadership and how she views leadership, particularly as she is a Black woman. I just want to see if I can share. Hopefully you can see that. And I wanted to use this opportunity to highlight one or two individuals, and she is one of them. And obviously you can find out more about her both on her website and on LinkedIn. But when I think it's, as a Black woman, you're looking at leadership, you need to also look at role models and people that can inspire you. I've obviously mentioned Michelle Obama, and you know, we've got obviously a number of very famous Black females, but Professor Laura Serrant probably is a bit more closer to home because she's a nurse by background. She's worked in and still working in the NHS, and she's been influential in the world of research. She's perhaps not as well known as some, but I think, as I say, you need to sort of look around and see where you can get your inspiration and your role models from. And some of them may be even much closer to home. So I think now, because we've got social media, you know, we've got this platform, so it's again building on the networks that you can have, finding like-minded individuals that can help challenge, support you, and help you develop yourself in your career, and being, you know, remaining humble, but equally remaining focused on putting in the work, putting in the hours to develop yourself, whether that's professionally, academically, and on a personal level. Those are sort of an ongoing kind of journey that we all have to acknowledge that we need to sort of continue, because none of us are the finished article, and I think we need to be focused but also remain humble in it with good measure too. And I think for me, I'm probably going to finish there really, and just hope that that's sort of given you some kind of germane points to help understand how leadership can change and evolve, and how it's something that, you know, we're all leaders in our own right. We've got sort of our own personal stories as well, but equally the skills and attributes that we can draw on from our personal lives, we can also, you know, utilize in our professional careers. And that's where I'm talking about being able to value yourself, because often, many cases, Black women do a lot of heavy lifting at home and in the family environment, and those are skills in themselves that need to be acknowledged both by yourselves but also by your peers. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Geraldine, for that. As someone has said on the platform, I couldn't have said it any better. Josephine said that, thank you for a lovely presentation, Gary. Very insightful. and definitely inspiring. And we certainly took a lot from your session. Someone also said, excellent words. Julie said, excellent words and inspirational, Gary. It's very fantastic because you mentioned something very significant there that is so important. We do make sure that the persons that we allow to mentor us or even speak to us is someone that we share the same values with. Because I remember the first time I told you about Black Women in Care, you wanted to know about the mission. You were very particular about it because you said, this is your words, if you're going to commit yourself, you need to know the mission and the vision and the values of the platform, and which is very, very, which is very, very profound. And you just mentioned that tonight, that you've been able to set standard and integrity for yourself for over the years, spending 38 years, as a nurse 38 years ago. And I can certainly say that, say that categorically that nothing has changed, because it's the same thing you told me. You wanted to know the vision and values before you commit yourself. So that's why it's very important that we've been able to value ourselves as well. Keep to our standard, you say. So keep to your standard and also your integrity. And, also we need allies, we need co-workers, people that are authentic. So thank you so much for that insightful session. Very, very insightful and inspirational. Thank you so much, Gary. And we, last but not the least, definitely not the least, I'll be introducing us to someone that I value so much and has been a support to this platform. And no other person but Trisha. Trisha has been very, very supportive for Black Women in Care. And she is a qualified social care worker with experience spanning adults and children social care and social care in the voluntary sector. She is currently the Director of Operations at Skills for Care, and she's interested in sector-led improvement and inclusive leadership, and develops and hosts leadership events as well. And she's very delighted we are also very delighted to have her on board as one of our advisory board members. And she's been very, very fantastic. She'll be sharing with us also our opportunities that are within health and social care. Because if we're talking about breaking the bias, we need to know where are the opportunities out there. So she's bringing the opportunities to us tonight. So over to you, Trisha. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Olinka. I have a couple of slides that I'm also going to share, so hopefully I can. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for inviting me to take part this evening. I love International Women's Day, actually. It was around 5 years ago that 2 weeks before International Women's Day, I decided to hold my first ever women's session, and I did that with Goldsmiths University, and I just thought I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do something, and so I started developing women in leadership sessions, and they were free evening events to support women who wanted to aspire into leadership roles, and that was in social care and in academia as well. So I just wanted to say a little bit about the demographics of social care. So there are, within social care, it's a very female dominated sector. So there's 82% of all the workers are female, 18% are male workers, and 21% of the workforce are identify as being from a Black, Asian and minority ethnic background, and 12% of those from the minority ethnic backgrounds identify as being Black, African or Caribbean or Black British backgrounds. So when I started off doing my women in leadership sessions, I started to talk about, to ask people if they put their hand up. If we're in a room together, I'd say put your hand up, and whether you think that it's men who are have the majority of the in social services director roles, and in the wider social care senior management or director roles. So whether you think it's men or whether you think it's women. And I'm not sure whether everybody can raise their hand, but can we quickly do a hand raise? Just put your hand raise up if you think it's men first, and then now if you think it's women who are in the most senior and director roles. I can't fully see the screen. What did we get? Did we get more men? Hands for men or women? Men. And usually people always say they think that directors of social services, children and adult social services, and those senior or director roles in wider social care, majority men. But actually, at this moment, it's majority women are in those roles, because within our sector, as we can see, 82% are female. But as my colleague Charlotte said, it's very few women from minority backgrounds make it to those senior position roles. And I always start off by saying that I don't think of myself as a leader. I never thought of myself as a leader, but actually what I've come to realize is I'm probably a reluctant leader. And so this is a bit of a quote around what somebody said to me, that Trisha, if you are inspiring others to do more in their roles, to think about where they want to go, to think about their career journeys, to do more, to be really involved, then you are a leader. So leadership spans every part of the organization, from the most senior most senior person in that leadership role to somebody at entry level. If they are aspiring their colleagues, you are leading in some form. So many of us are already leaders, but perhaps we're not at the level where we are leading an organization or leading big teams. But you can inspire people at every level that you're at, and you can be an inspiration to others at every level that you're at. So a little bit about my career journey. I am a social worker, and in fact, almost every role that I've been in as a social worker, I have been as a Black woman, as a minority. So my background as a social worker is sensory social work. So that's working with deaf and deafblind and hard of hearing people. There were very few people at the time who were Black and brown in those roles. And then I moved into domiciliary care, and then I moved into social work management. And again, I was perhaps one or two. And the higher up I've moved in my profession, again, there's very scarce that I come across other people who resemble me. But as Charlotte said, and as Jerry said, don't let that put you off, and don't let that stop you. You can see from my career journey, I've had about 15 or so different roles. I took the long route to becoming a director. There are people, namely men, who would skip many of these roles. And that's because I followed my own journey. I followed a journey where I felt comfortable. I didn't follow a journey at pace. For me, it wasn't a race. The only race that I had was for myself. So I wanted to learn my craft as a social worker. I wanted to learn my craft working in social care. And I felt very, I felt inspired, but I also felt that I wanted to do more at the various levels that I was at. And it was then in some of the what could be seen as the more junior roles, so as development worker or perhaps even a senior social worker, that people started to talk to me about leadership, and were identifying with me that, Trisha, you have some leadership skills, you've got leadership abilities. I didn't recognize that for myself. It was other people that saw that in me. And as we've heard from colleagues today, we don't always recognize the values and the skills that we have, but we know that we want to do more and we want to become more involved. You may be involved in a team meeting or something and you think, I could do this differently. I could do this better. I could do this. I could support this team. That's showing your leadership abilities. So I took the long route, but it was the route that was right for me. I also had family over the way and children and everything. So balancing a family and your career is always a challenge. And actually some of these roles, I think when I was a principal social worker and a team manager and head of safeguarding, I had 3 roles at the same time that I was working at. But one of the things that I learned along the way was no matter what role I was in, the more senior I became, I also felt invisible, but I was also very visible. Being the only brown person in the room, I was completely visible. when I started doing work within the Department of Health and Social Care, I would go to meetings and I would be completely visible. But then after those meetings, I would pass people in the corridor and I'd put my hand up to say hi, and they would walk by, and I recognized I'm invisible to them. So in certain situations, I stand out as a Black woman. In other corridors, I'm completely invisible to people. I used to find that completely frustrating. However, I've realized that no matter how scary it is, when you are the only person in the room and you're so visible in the room, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because being the only one in the room, you can use to your advantage. It means that when you have something to say, when you have a point to make, when you want to push something, people will have their eyes on you and they will listen because you stand out. So it's useful to use being the only one in the room to your advantage. But that also means you have to prepare yourselves for what you want to say. And I have colleagues that I will talk to. I will have people that I trust, that I will get myself prepared to understand what I'm going to say. And then I enter the room and I feel totally confident and comfortable, and I'm able to make my point. So when I'm in that room, I use that to my advantage, but I also leave the door open so that other people who look like me, who resemble me, can also step into that room. So often, sometimes when I'm in a meeting or I'm going to an event, I will ask, can I bring somebody with me? Can I bring so-and-so with me? Can I bring a colleague with me? And it may be a junior colleague, another person of color that I will invite with me so that they get the experience of being in that room and using that room to their advantage. One of the things that I've learned in my career journey is that not only having a mentor, not only having support, but also being exposed to situations means you're better prepared to step into situations when you need to. So again, look at building your brand. When you're in the workplace or even out of the workplace, when people have a project in mind or some work that's happening, do they think of you? Do you volunteer for things? Is there something that really drives your passion? How can you incorporate that into your everyday work? How can you volunteer to do things? Because when you're putting your hand up to say, I'll lead on this project, or I'll work with you on this project, or I'll support this project, or I will do something, you are stepping into being in that room. You're stepping into being visible. And that means you will expand yourself. People will get to know you. People will know that you can do things, that you are prepared to take on challenges. And then people will start to think of you in other leadership or other senior roles. And you will learn to grow. And you'll start to become a bit more comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So there are opportunities that we at Skills for Care can provide to be able to support people to aspire into roles. And they're not only opportunities around talking to people, getting advice and information, but also around how to get funding. And there's something called the Workforce Development Fund. And the Workforce Development Fund can fund qualifications and learning at various levels, from level 2, 3, 4, 5 qualifications and up. So thinking about focused training or focused learning that can give you the practical skills to be able to do your job. We also run a program called the Moving Up program. And the Moving Up program is a program that's specifically focused for Black and minority ethnic workers within social care who are aspiring to leadership roles. And this program is partly funded by the Workforce Development Fund. So prior to joining Skills for Care, we used to run one program each year. Since I joined Skills for Care, we have now run 3 programs in this year, and we'll be running 3 more in the next year onwards. And this is how it can support you to develop your career, to develop your management skills, develop your leadership skills, and you'll be in the room with like-minded people. And as I say, it's funded through the Workforce Development Fund. So I just wanted to say a little bit about people that inspire me. I'm actually inspired by the women who are sharing this platform today. I'm inspired by people who I come across, colleagues, peers, because each one of us have spoken this evening about being either the only one or one of 2 or one of 3 within an organisation where we are very visible in our leadership roles, and it hasn't been easy. But I take strength from my lady colleagues here this evening and who I meet across our career journeys and our pathways, because we are there and we can provide support to each other and we can support one another in continuing to do our roles, but also in supporting other people who are aspiring into those roles. So as Jerry says, as Charlotte has said and Olinka has said, talking about mentoring people, supporting people, giving advice and information. And that's where I'd like to end today. Support one another and support each other to aspire.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. A round of applause for Tricia, please. That was very wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us and all the insightful tips as well. We need people leaving the door open as a leader, be exposed to situation, build your own brand. As you are at work, is there any, if there's any problem, show your problem solving skills. What can they identify you for? Even as you're working within the position, what other thing can they identify you for? That they can't take that away from you. Definitely not. I've got so many things. I'm writing notes. I don't know if other people are doing the same, but I've been writing notes. It's your own route, it's your own journey. You need to have your own personal map. Even though we can share stories, we can share about our life, but you need to remember also, like Tricia said, it is your own journey. It is your own route. So I know, and I also like that quote that says, why am I so visible yet invisible? That you can use being the only one in the room to your own advantage, being the only one in your room to your own advantage. And Dudley said, I love being inspired by those around me and those who are visible, doing something that is tangible. So it's been a very brilliant session. Thank you so much. Because of our time, we still have question and answers. So I'm just going to ask you one question. We're still on this topic. I'm just going to ask one question. So if I do ask, I'm going to throw it open so anyone can take that question. And one of the questions I have here is that I don't think we've touched on that yet. That what is one thing, just one thing, it can be one word or in a sentence. What is one thing that you think organization can do to positively impact diversity and inclusion? What's one thing organization can do to positively impact diversity and inclusion? So that's open. I don't know if Tricia wants to answer that, or Gary or Charlotte. We're all standing on the shoulders of our mother, Gary said, and fathers too. This gives us focus and strength. Yes, give us focus and strength. So what's one thing you think organization can do to positively impact diversity and inclusion?
I think one of the things, there are a number, and there's a link I was going to share later as well, that somebody who's quite I suppose a well-known, high-profile contributor on LinkedIn. I don't know whether anyone has heard of Shireen Daniels, the HR conversationist at BU. She really has some excellent, I suppose, insights, advice, resources, expertise. And there's a slide that I'm going to share that she's kind of put in on one with 12 points. But one of the key things I think is important is about transparency, and being transparent about what the issues are, owning it right across the organization, and not just expecting the black and brown people to fix the problem, which I'm sad to say is still sometimes the case. Personally, part of the reason I moved to where I am now is because I moved to an organisation who admitted they needed to grow and needed to learn, but they were being open about what they needed to do, understanding where their gaps are and what they needed to do to try and get there, with working with colleagues who were black and brown, not expecting them to do the heavy lifting, but taking some ownership. And I think if you're in an organisation that's saying that they're doing that and can show an evidence that they're making progress, and that might mean that they also acknowledge that they're at the start of that journey. They're not pretending that they've got it all, done all the answers. That's more honest and has more integrity than those organisations that say, oh, we don't have a problem, or equally, oh yes, we've done this, and this, we've been there, done that, we're moving on now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Gary. So transparency is very important. Organization being open about what they've done. If they haven't achieved it within the time frame, they should be open and say, okay, this is what we thought we are going to achieve, but we haven't achieved it yet. So transparency is very important. I think Tricia wanted to answer that as well.
Yeah, I did. Just to follow on from Jerry, it's true that that there are many race charters. There's the Prince's Race at Work Charter. We are launching the social care race equality standards for all organisations, and one of the things that we'll be doing is going out to all employers and organisations and asking them to adopt it and take it on board, because that will add the transparency and the benchmarking for, similarly as they've done in the NHS, to be able to pull out within each individual organisation what they need to do to work on building race and gender equality for them. So we're pulling together the standards. We've rolled it out in local authorities and we've tested it, and we're going to be rolling it. It's now in the social care white paper, so now we'll be rolling it out in the forthcoming year across wider social care. But in the meantime, there are things you can talk within your organisation around having safe spaces for people to talk, staff sessions where people can talk about race and gender equality. As I said, setting up a charter, having staff forums, but actually it's the leaders that need to take ownership of it. They need to model that transparency and that inclusive workplace. And we'd be happy to support and help that.
Thank you for that. So the leaders need to take ownership and transparency at workplace. Thank you so much for that, Tricia. And Julia also said here, reduce assumption through training and development, and reduce assumption through training and development. So thank you very much for that. I'll be introducing to us, Julia is here. She's going to talk to us briefly about an invention. I was so very proud of a Black woman, being able to, but she will do that introduction. So I'll just give her the platform for her to do so herself. Over to you, Juliet.
Okay, hi. So, hello. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yes, you can. Hi. Yeah, my name's Juliet, and I work with Cherise Mullings, who invented a product called Gipskins, arm protectors for healthcare workers. She was a carer for 7 years. During that time, she was scratched and bitten by dementia patients. And I myself have a background in behavioural safety training, but within construction and rail. So I can relate to what many of you are saying about being the only one. I was the only female trainer within construction and rail dealing with behavioural safety. So when I'm looking at Cherise's, the issue she's got, I was really shocked to see that carers and nurses that work with learning disabilities, mental health, were told, oh, it's part of the job. Being scratched and bitten is, it's part of the job. And I was really shocked because I'm coming from a construction site where we actually wrap the men up. You can't even walk onto a construction site without a hard hat, high-vis jacket, steel toe cap boots, and you're not actually even doing any work. You've just entered the site. So coming from that background and then seeing what nurses are exposed to, it was just really evident that there's a disparity between male PPE and protection for male and PPE and protection for female dominated industries. So I encouraged Cherise and said, yeah, no, definitely it is an issue. And out of her passion for caring, she went on the journey of finding a solution to protect arms from bites and scratches. This was a massive challenge because, as you're all aware, bare below the elbow is the guidance that exists. And so therefore she had to find something that also met the bare below the guidance, met the needs. So she joined societies like Infection Prevention Society during the beginning stages and trial stages of finding an ideal solution for arm injuries and bites and scratches that also met infection control standards. So that was coming up to 7 years ago now. They now are being used in learning disability schools. We've got learning disability schools that have them as part of their uniform. They're now being used in hospitals such as Kingsway Hospital, mental health hospital in Kingsway, Sheffield Health and Social Care mental health hospitals are also using them as part of their uniforms. We have them being used in Scotland, Wales. They're also being used, so we've got ambulance service as well. We've got an ambulance community partnership that use them as part of their uniform as well. And they're being used, but at the moment they're being used, so you'll get 10 here, 10 there, but I'm just talking about the ones that have actually incorporated them as a full uniform. So what we've been trying to do is just highlight the fact of the risk that teeth and nails provide. Teeth and nails are not included on risk assessments. The challenges that we've faced and Sharice has faced with launching this product has been incredible, particularly as Black women. It's been absolutely incredible. We've been told all along, no, it's part of the job. No, they can't have anything on their arms. However, you know, Sharice has persisted, because at the end of the day, health and safety law trumps guidance. So, and with knowing that and finding all that evidence, we have persisted despite being told no from the NHS on many occasions. The old school, it tends to be the old school that say no. But the thing is, young people are not prepared to have scratches down their arm and have bodily fluids all over their arms. They're not prepared to do that. I mean, I spoke to a senior nurse, you would think, that was part of, had an infection control role, and said, well, oh, it's part of the job, I'll just wipe it off. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not acceptable for us. we've had feedback back saying that they come at some nurses that work in personal care, they'll actually smell it on their skin, even though they've scrubbed their skin. They still have an odor. So, you know, we're very funny about hygiene. So it's not acceptable for that to happen and to say it's okay, particularly when you've got CDC, World Health Authority, all saying that there should be a barrier between your skin and contaminated blood and bodily fluids. Sharice has managed to provide a protection that actually does that. It's a barrier, it's reusable, so it's saving the environment. It's cleanable with COVID grade wipes, so it can be cleaned between patients. Whatever you use on surfaces within hospitals can be used on the product, on the arms of the product. They're sleeves that just pull up onto your arm. And we've had a massive challenge, and I know that if we'd have been different people, we would probably, you know, she'd probably be getting awards, because it's the most innovative product that has actually come onto the health and social care market in years. She has had nurses at Northampton Hospital that withdrew care until they were provided this protection, arm protection, and that's how they found out about us. So everybody that's using GIP skins is not because we've had the leg up that you might see other people receiving, but because it's a necessity, and nurses are saying we need this protection. And fortunately, GIP skins comes in 2 colors as well. So, you know, sometimes they'll say, oh, flesh colored plasters, and we'll put it on and it's not our flesh color anyway. So they come in both brown and beige, and they also sell in South Africa now. So we have them in the Nelson Mandela Hospital out in South Africa and a few of the other hospitals. So yeah, so that's a bit about Sharice, about the product. And what we're saying is we'd really just want, you know, so many of us in healthcare to take a look at the product. The law is changing April the 6th, where not only do the PPE laws are changing on April the 6th. So you're in a position where the bank staff also have to have PPE, and you also have to have PPE not after someone's been scratched or bitten by, you know, a dementia patient or a mental health patient or a patient with complex needs, but you have to have it in stock. So heads up, because there's benefits to organizations because it prevents them having liabilities of workplace injury claims. There's benefits to well-being of the carer and the nurse because they're not being asked, are you self-harming, which is feedback that we've got because they've got scratches down their arms. There's also benefits to organisations because we've got figures that show people will leave the industry or leave caring for an individual because they're being scratched inadvertently, receiving injuries. So there is a solution. It's a solution by a lovely young lady called Cherise Mullings, who has done the job on the front line herself as a carer. And please take a look at the product, take a look at the what she's done, and please, you know, it's not part of the job. As Skills for Care, that's your line. Skills for Care, yeah. You guys did. In fact, it was actually Skills for Care was our first. We used the reports from Skills for Care on violence in the workplace in order to gain the evidence to prove that Gipskins arm protectors were a necessity and not a luxury.
Wow,
So,
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
It's not part of the job. I think that was the slogan they used. Yeah, violence in the workplace, and it's not part of the job. So thank you very much for letting me have a bit of time to talk to you and share Gipskins PPE with you. But I definitely understand everything you ladies are saying. Everything you said about being yourself. As a Black woman, I've worked in behavioural safety and rail and construction for 20 years. I used to do it before I started with Gipskins, and I was the only woman. And the first thing they'd say, I'd walk in, is they say, "Oi, Bill, bloody hell, Bill, it's a woman." And then 5 minutes later, they say, "Oi, Bill, it's a Black woman." But you know what? They accept it. I kept it real, as many of you were saying. I kept it real. And you know what? I went up and down the country with construction and rail. I was myself. I didn't try to be them, or, you know, and you know what? They accepted me. And I would say, wherever I went, they loved me. They wanted to ask questions about, they didn't want to tiptoe, because I didn't tiptoe things. They wanted to ask questions. I'd go in to do a course on behavioural safety, and they would ask me questions because they've just come off a diversity course, which they didn't agree with, or they didn't understand because it was delivered incorrectly. So I'm the first Black person they had contact with, and they would question it. So yeah, be yourself, because like Levi Roots, he was himself and he got a contract.
Yeah, be yourself. Don't try to be like anyone else. Thank you so much.
Don't try to be like anyone else.
Yeah, don't try to be like anyone else. It's been so fantastic being on this platform today. And thank you for sharing that wonderful invention with us, Juliet. People are asking for the website, and Gary, thank you for posting that. So we have the link. If you do have your emails, please do share, because we have some infection nurses here and directors here. One of them has asked for the details. So she's an infection nurse. So I'm sure she will signpost you to some few people in our network. So thank you all so much. I don't know if anyone has any question. We can take just one question, just one, for our speakers tonight. Do you have any question at all? Just one question. Otherwise, we're going to close. Okay.
Sorry, I don't have a question, but I do have something I'd like to say, and that's thank you very much, Alenka, for putting on this event. It's been great. Thank you very much for all your hard work and effort.
Thank you.
Can I also give a big thank you to all of my fellow sistren who've taken the time on busy days to put this event on. It was absolutely inspirational. It was welcoming and it was beautiful, all full of love and peace, but also very inspirational. My sister Jerry, yeah, all of you have been brilliant. And I want to ask this question. Do we think that at some point we'll be having International Women's Day events like this, when we'll be celebrating the significant number of Black women in leadership positions in the NHS? And I'm focusing on that because adult social care and social care, they actually have got a lot of women, not Black women, obviously, but they've already got women, white women in those positions. And I hope that one day the NHS will have people who look like us in leadership positions, but it's not just that they look like us, they understand how important it is to hold your hand out to help your sister in getting up behind you. And sometimes we're our own worst enemy. But I'm going to end on a positive and just talk about, yeah, it's been great. I've had meetings after meetings. I'm a bit tired, but thank you so much for this. It was brilliant. Stay safe and well, and enjoy the rest of International Women's Day. Ciao.
We will do. Thank you so much for coming. So thank you all for joining us today in today's discussion. Thank you all. I can see everyone on the platform. Thank you all. We hope that you've enjoyed the insights from our amazing speakers and our guests, and that you've learned from their stories, and also you're going out to announce the opportunities that are out there. As you can see from what Julia's testimony says about Skills for Care, so please do check out Skills for Care website. Also do check out Marie Curie's website. So here is to a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination. A world that's diverse, equitable, and inclusive. A world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, I believe we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can all break the bias. And like we've all said, that there'll be a time, like Julie mentioned now, there'll be a time that we will be celebrating the number of Black women in that leadership positions. I'm very sure the time is soon and the time is near. So thank you all for joining in today. And I hope you enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Be safe.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.